I wanted to give a quick update on where I am with the car and some of the recent work. I wanted to work on something a little more interesting, a week or so ago, and decided to start messing with the subframe connectors. So I got them on there, but they're Global West. I don't mind the design. I think they're not bad looking. They seem like I think they're DOM tubing, so they're pretty beefy wall. They just kind of hug the bottom of the car. Uh, I'm not a huge fan of the rear area, how it ties in. They wrap the they basically bend the tube to try to mimic the shape. But what that does is once you try to put a bracket on there, then that bracket becomes you have to cut the tube really long, or they do it at the factory, whatever. So as a result, you can't really make the whole turn when you're doing putting the little U brackets or whatever on the back there that wrap around the frame. So as a result, you end up with a pocket up in the back, right up in here, that is wide open. So then you have to come in and weld something in. I haven't ground any of this crap down yet, but knock all the bumps and nasty droopy welds off of there. But so you gotta fill that when you're done, otherwise water and stuff can get down inside there. I think it would be a little cleaner if they just maybe design that into the bracket or something, so it actually went up against it where it belongs. The other issue I had with them was I have aftermarket frame rails on here when I was changing everything out, obviously, and I don't know if the width of the frame rails is the same as the factory ones. I was under the assumption they should have been identical, but I'm hearing that maybe sometimes they're wider or not the right contour. So when I went to put these on there, these didn't fit over top of the frame rail. It was about an 1/8 inch too skinny. These were the U-shape brackets. So I had to cut the outer one off and then push it up on there, weld that stuff, and then slap this outer plate back on and weld it back on when it was done. So not really what I was hoping to do there. I called the company and they said, well, it's the frame rails for aftermarket. A lot of times they're not the right size. I just find it really hard to believe that the frame rails, since they're such large components, would be the wrong, formed that far off. But I mean, they could be. I don't know. I just I didn't have the originals sitting around to measure to verify, but I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't just fit right over. And if you know that the new frame rails are a problem, then why don't you just do 2 different brackets and you can order whichever one you want, So I don't know. It's kind of a frustration point there with some of the aftermarket companies that they're not playing to the rest of the aftermarket industry. So they're still making it something for the original, but then every excuse is that somebody else's part's wrong. So anyway, that's I'll get off my soapbox. But so and then the other side of it was, if you go down to the front end, now the front end bracket also, it's a U shape as well, and it was so loose on the front that I had probably a 1/4 inch that I would have to fill on the inside, on this inside face. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. That's just a huge amount I can't fill that with weld. That's ridiculous. So as a result, I ended up cutting that ear off, and I don't know if I'll weld it back on yet. I did run a bead down the inside edge. I've got to clean some of this up, but it just doesn't make any sense. You can't tell me that these now are a 1/4 inch too skinny. It just seems like there's a whole lot of I don't know, quality control issues that I think people need to keep in mind when they're trying to do these things. And if that's the case, then don't even bother powder coating it, or don't bother welding it on there if I have to modify the bracket. I mean, I'm burning off half your powder coat to do it. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, one thing I did do, because I just am trying to make the car as rigid as possible. A little ways back, I welded an L bracket on that side, and then the same thing on the other side. And this would normally be going just to the floor, and then I have one back here going to the bottom of the torque box. So I'm trying to tie this into the torque box so I have multiple tie-ins along the frame, so it's not just rails that can twist. Now these, if I go back to these middle ones again, these L's are then welded up through the floor to the inside, to the bottom of the seat platform. So I have the convertible seat platform that goes all the way across, and I wanted to tie the rails in through the floor into that to try to tie into this H, kind of like make a little bit more of an H mechanism out of it. I haven't decided if I'll do a cross tubes or H or X bar or any of that stuff. I haven't really gone down that road yet, but I did want to tie it into this, but I figured this is a good source of structure. and just to have the bars hanging in space by themselves. Otherwise, you're allowing a lot of torsion on there. It just made more sense to tie it in here. So anyway, that's just kind of where I'm at with the subframe connectors. Like I said, I got to do a lot of grinding. I got a lot of turds on there. You know, when you weld on it, you know, doing a vertical weld, you do get dripping or like drooping of the weld if you're not careful, and especially when you're running that much amperage stuff on it. So anyway, that's, you know, I got to clean all that up, try to make it a little more presentable. Eventually, I'd love to get the thing on a say a rotisserie or flip over jig or something, just so I can really clean the bottom up really well. But you know, that may or may not happen. I guess I'll wait and see. So that's about it on this part. But yeah, the frame rails, I think they're pretty good overall. You know, you do have them pretty tight to the floor, obviously, as you can see. I think they'll probably help beef it up a little bit. I was gonna run some tubes out to the outside, out to the bottom of the rocker, and they said they actually sell a kit to do that. But the more I looked at it, I was like, it's almost impossible, because if you take this, you know, you try to run something out, you'd have to run it up or have it extending down from this edge, and I don't want to have more stuff visible from there if I can help it. So you can tell you go towards the front, towards the floor support, you get the floor kind of curves upward a little bit. You do have room up there, but you certainly don't have it at the back. So it just kind of made sense to at least tie it into the torque box, which is, you know, at least something a little stiffer, and then same thing with the seat platform. So anyway, that's just, you know, just something I wanted to, you know, update people on, and you know, I'll go from there.